I've never seen anything like it before, and to attempt to hit the ball out of there is pure madness.
The winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Cameron Smith.
This is the one that I've always wanted to win since I was a little kid. So it just feels pretty amazing to be able to get it done today.
It's amazing that it's my destiny to be the first Aussie to win. Just incredible.
Hello and welcome to episode 109 of the Playing from the Tips podcast, the weekly preview and tipping show presented by Golf Australia magazine that is back into major championship mode this week, with the Chevron Championship marking the first of the big events for women's golf this year. Jimmy Emanuel here leading the charge as we look at all things Chevron, as well as PGA Tour teams golf, LIV in Mexico City and the DP World Tour in China. Joining me to cover all that and so much more is a man who's not too dissimilar from the Chevron. Varied names, rebrands of his business, changing, moving around, but still a major player nonetheless. Rod Morri, welcome to your own studio.
Thank you, mate. I see you've been impressed by the new desk. It's inspired the intro.
It really has. That was a rewrite as we were sitting here at the new desk.
Is it a Jack Nicklaus design desk?
Signature design.
Next, he last week ducked out having not tipped Rory and likened his own golf to Rory during the Masters.
Yes, an extraordinary.
In an extraordinary thing, and then didn't front up to defend himself or explain that. We might get the explanation now as to how his golf matches that of, again, a major championship winner, Adrian Loke.
Well, I've had a run of form. I won the monthly medal. I don't know if I told the listeners about that last time.
I'm sure they were hanging on and waiting.
But with the net 67, with 3 double bogeys in that net 7, like not quite the 4 double bogeys that Rory had on the way to winning the Masters, but there's the comparison. Also, I followed that up the very next week with another stroke event, net 68, with 2 triple bogeys. That's pretty Rory-esque.
Yeah, it's not far off.
Right. Funnily enough, that actually is pretty Rory-esque, isn't it? Yeah.
That's pretty
5
close.
birdies paired with those 2 triple bogeys.
Okay, well, that's enough of your golf. Moving on.
So
and
just 1 over for those 4 holes.
Moving on, and as we do each week, it's the moment of the show where we reflect on the last week's golf and the highlights, lowlights, otherwise. Anyone got anything particular to bring to the table? Justin Thomas showing us what he's capable of.
What a player. What a player.
Yeah.
Not a highlight for me, though. I'm not a particular Justin Thomas fan, although I do admire the way he plays the game and the shots that he brings to the table. But I tell you what, I've been watching more golf than I have for a long time these last few weeks. It's been really, really good. The DP World Tour, because it was in China this week, the timing was perfect. Really, really good and exciting golf. It's not the big names, but there's nothing wrong with the quality of the golf. And the highlight for me the last few weeks has been Eugenio Chicane at both India and then on Saturday here in China when it played US Open like. The greens were baked out, super firm, super fast. And he's really showed he's got a game for them. I mean, I know he didn't win in the end, but look out for him at the US Open if and when he makes the field. He's a really, really good player.
Is he still playing with LIV at all? Or
No.
He was, okay.
No. And I don't think he'll be going back given what he said on his way out the door.
No,
okay.
No, not at all. I thought Ingrid Lindblad, another highlight. That's a player who everyone's seen sort of develop through that Augusta National Women's Amateur and seen come through. Very
the US Women's Open, which was an amateur, would she lead after the first round
correct,
the year that Min Ji won it? So she's clearly a good player just coming into her own.
Yeah.
And I think all the post-Rory win stuff was interesting to see, all that sort of stuff. And
Couldn't agree
it
more.
was interesting to see the people, the LIV fans and how they reacted to it. And I think it's golf, as you say, I think is in a very good spot.
Best thing to happen to golf for a good 3 or 4 years, Rory winning the Masters.
Really restored balance to the golf world in a
it's
weird
got
sense.
integrity in some weird way.
Everything seems right now.
Yes, that's correct.
For some reason.
And it's now perfect timing for LPGA to have their first major, whereas
Agreed.
we used to have it a bit around the other way and it didn't quite work. This is now a great window for them.
The Masters outmaneuvered them beautifully with the whole ANWA thing
Correct.
over the last few years.
On last week, it was a strong, if not spectacular week for us. 5 top 10s, no wins, which takes us to 52 top 10s in 2025 and 24 wins, which, Rod, you are tipping totals unrivaled by any podcast where the hosts drink instant coffee while recording.
Not just instant coffee, bad instant coffee.
Yeah.
International roast.
International roast.
It really did.
Sponsor?
Listen, in my own defence, Maybe. In my own defence, I grew up with international road, so I actually like it. I know that's bad, but it's one of those things. You have a golf course that's a sort of a shameful one that you enjoy that you really shouldn't. It's one of those sorts of things. So that's what you get when you come.
This is a safe space, Rod. You don't need to be ashamed of your international
My
roads.
space, so it's okay.
On to this week we go, and as mentioned off the top, major championship time for the LPGA at the Chevron Championship, which was the A&A inspiration, the Kraft Nabisco, all that sort of stuff for many years.
For those of us of a certain generation, Jimmy, it will always be the dinosaur.
Correct. And that was all of its time in California at Mission Hills with the jumping into the water of Poppy's Pond that was the annual tradition, but renamed the Chevron for the massive global fuel giant Chevron. It moved to their home in Texas in 2023. Last year was won by Nelly Korda in that sort of amazing hot run she had at the start of the year. But let's get some golf course background from you, please, Logue.
Sure. The Chevron, as it has been for the last 2 years now, is played at the Jack Nicklaus signature course at the club at Carlton Woods.
It's a lot of words.
It is a lot of words. The club at Carlton Woods. This course was opened in 2001. It sits alongside a Fazio course, which is on a bit better land and actually visually a little bit more impressive. But I think this is probably the better tournament venue in terms of like setting up all that tournament infrastructure and such. It was when this course was initially launched, it was praised in many circles. In fact, awarded the best new private course in Texas and number 3 best new private course, number 3 best private course in the US. That's.
Did you want to start again, Mike?
No. I'm going with that. And just to round that off, the Bear himself ranked it as his 18th best course. This is one of my favourite stats.
Oh, yeah, I like this one. Yeah.
It's his 18th favourite.
I didn't know this
18th
existed.
best course.
Oh, is there danger in that as a designer, starting to rank them? What's number 1?
It's so bizarre.
It's such a strange thing.
It is. It's like actually picking your favourite children and ranking them.
Yeah. That's a Nicholas quote.
What's 17?
I've no idea. It doesn't matter.
Where can we access this list?
I don't know.
Ring Jack.
Anyway, the Chevron actually prompted a major overhaul of this course. About $10 million they spent to fix it up a little bit prior to the 2022 event, I think it was. And like the sort of stuff where they did, they lowered the greens a little bit and widened the fairways. And it's actually quite generous in the driving areas. Very flat property, just woodland, flat Texas woodland, I think is how you would describe this. And in terms of architectural merit, there's not a lot of visual interest. You've just got your typical sort of wide fairways for a Nicholas course, very penal. There's water on 11 holes, usually closely bordering the fairways. The green's slightly raised, so you get that little bit of a repelling effect of the ball if you're slightly off on your irons. So what I want to see out of this course is some sense of memorability of the holes like we had with Augusta. That's what you want with a tournament venue for a major where you're coming to the same course year after year.
Agreed.
I think we can agree we've got that with the 18th on this course,
Agreed.
which is pretty memorable.
Well, things have happened there too, haven't they? Which is what makes it stick.
Correct. I can't remember a single other hole on the golf course, though. Although there are some reasonably notable holes, it doesn't have that sequence of fantastic, memorable holes down the finish. But
Sawgrass, Augusta, as you say, Royal Melbourne, where you got those loops of 3 or 4 holes that just make it stand out.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think there's a par 3 on the back 9, which I have a little bit of a memory of because Angel Yin, I think, put it in a bunker at a critical time or something. Didn't hit the shot that was required there or something. I don't know. But anyway, I'll be looking for that. I'm going to watch the tournament with a great deal of interest. It's a major, and I'm looking at the course with a view to try and find some distinctive characteristics to those closing holes.
So that next year you can actually bring something of value to the preview.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I watch the early rounds, I want to sort of
They've got feature groups this year, or ESPN does. I don't know whether we'll get it in Australia. That's a fantastic thing. I love that feature group.
I think that the golf course, this is probably where you see the difference in the level of coverage that the LPGA gets, that there's not those people who go and do the golf course type preview. Obviously, Augusta is a different kettle of fish, but for a major, there's, fried egg and all these things that are so golf course focused that will really educate you on the golf course. So you've got something you're looking for. The LPGA just doesn't get that level of coverage and probably doesn't do it themselves for their golf courses. So that's where it sort of lacks a little bit, as well as being a new venue. So
yet, ironically, they've started to go to some really good golf courses.
Correct.
They really could promote that, and it really makes the quality of the golf fantastic. You're right. I think the LPGA really misses the boat on architecture completely.
And the first year of this venue was horrendously wet. And
Yes, I remember.
it didn't show up very well. It's still a bit marked up from the renovation, and it just didn't get the first run as a major venue that it needed. So
An upgrade on Mission Hills?
I think golf course wise it is. Yeah, I think Mission Hills had that familiarity and had that tradition, and it was at the end of a Californian swing, and all the players liked it. But I think it's definitely a golf course upgrade for sure.
Yeah,
Sets up very well for the likes of Nelly Corder again, which I guess we're going to get
unlike
into.
most golf courses.
No.
But I see your point.
Speaking of Nelly, Rod, you're going to give us a few players to watch before we start tipping anything?
Yes, indeed. So, look, let's tick off the usual suspects because there's no need to go through why they're a chance. Nelly, of course, defending, and she's Nelly. Lydia, she's Lydia. Cut and tied 17th here last 2 years, but she always has to be considered a chance. She's a different looking Lydia Ko this year too. Hannah we'll talk about later when you do the Australians, as we do with Minjee. Ayaka Furuwe, not a great record here, regularly contender though in most weeks, so you wouldn't put it past her to be there. Jin Young Ko tied 7th last week. Matty Burns will be happy. That's a bit of a bounce back for Jin Young, who's not been playing well since that injury 18 months or so ago.
Top 10 in Singapore as well, I think.
Yeah.
Just quietly
That's right.
going about her business.
She's getting back to being Jin Young Ko and going into that list of because she's Jin Young Ko. And Gino Titikan, who I'll talk about a bit later because heads up, she's probably going to be my tip and not probably. She's definitely going to be
What a surprise.
But on the interesting side, and this is what I really like about the LPGA, it was a fabulous finish in California.
It was.
Weekend. Really exciting stuff with really good golf. I thought the golf course was really interesting.
It was, yeah.
We didn't know much about it beforehand. It was a bit hard to get a gauge on, but it really played well, I thought, and really produced a good. And have I got that right, Jimmy? Aki Iway?
Oh.
The Japanese player who finished second. There's a couple of them playing on the LPGA Tour. Their records in Japan are outstanding. They're much better players than they're known for. And she's very much in that category. She's already won once on the LPGA. I know. Yes, she did. No, she's finished second twice now, I think, on the LPGA.
Yep.
Soon I'll cut that and save it because it won't be long before I'll be able to insert that. She's won once on the LPGA Tour. And look, it really could be this week. Having watched her yesterday, it may not be the sort of course that necessarily suits her eye particularly well, but she's a good enough player and a proven winner in Japan, obviously, and that certainly tied 30th last year. Not bad for a debut. Never seen the course, and if it's not her sort of course. Hainan Yu, we just don't talk about anywhere near enough, and yet she is just a top 10 machine. She's Minjee Lee of a couple of years ago. Just top 10s every single week. So look out for her. Tied 7th here last year. I don't remember her being a part of the mix, but clearly there. If you finished top 10 last year, you remember the chance. Lauren Coughlin is now 8th in the world.
Just
That's
ultra
amazing,
consistent.
isn't it? Yeah.
Extraordinary. And you can absolutely... I think of the Chevron here as a little bit like the PGA Championship where it's kind of PGA or US Open Light, PGA Tour Premium, do you know what I mean? The course setups will tend to be what they see most weeks, and this feels a bit like
This
that.
is where she really first emerged last year.
Yes, this will suit her down again. She's down to the ground, and she's clearly playing well. She played really well
Third last week.
Yeah, was definitely not out of it. So I think it's right for her. Ronnie Yin, what do you say about Ronnie Yin? At any moment she could bob up. Not a great record here, and she hasn't been at her best this year. She had no top 10s this year, which is interesting. But you never know. Players are that. Nasa Hitoka stormed home in California, 63 in her final round. That often carries over to the next week. She's been decent here as well. So she's going to get home at some point, maybe this week. Esther Henselite, Jimmy, did you tip her last week or think about her?
I did tip her.
Excellent call.
That was my steadfast tip.
Yeah, because she played really, really, really well.
She may feature in one of my tips this week as well.
Well, she was a top 10 here last year again. Yeah. We tend to forget these things. If you've been in the top 10, you're much closer to having one than you tend to think about when you look at the record books. So, and the last one that I think could be really interesting, Miyu Yamashita, she's another one of the Japanese players, 13 times a winner. On the JLPGA, third last week in California, obviously playing well. What it all adds up to, Jimmy, is I reckon we're really going to have a great week. There's the The LPGA is quite democratic. You've got a couple of standout stars. Nelly's not dominating like she did last year, and so every week is just fantastic. I haven't mentioned Patty Tavatanik there. I don't think this course suits her particularly well, and there's a bunch of other players. Charlie Hull is another one that you might put in that category.
I think the LPGA, if you look at it at this time of year to last year when Nelly was on that run and so dominant and everyone was going, this is amazing, probably externally outside the traditional golf watcher, it got more attention.
Yes.
Hey, this is a generational athlete. Where it is now is, if you're a golf watcher, it is better because
100%.
there is that many good players and some that people wouldn't have ever heard of, a lot of the Japanese players coming over, and they just get to see these unbelievable talents.
And the quality
the
of
competitive
the golf, Jimmy.
it's
my
remarkable.
Goodness, they can play. Really can play.
Absolutely.
Fabulous stuff. So I'm really looking forward to the week for that reason. I'm not a great fan of the course, as with you. Don't find much memorable about it. But the golf itself, as we've discussed before, you can have compelling golf on poor golf courses. This is not a poor golf course, but it'll be compelling golf this week. Of that, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get, after all of that, a winning tip from everyone. And Rod, you can lead us off, given I think you're going to steal one of my think-abouts.
Well, how could you not think about Gino Titikin? We all know that she's been doing special things or on the verge of special things just about every week already this year. You feel like 2025 could well be her year. She might be at the start of that Harrington 3 years that he sort of talked about. I think this could be the year for her. Her bad golf is excellent and her good golf is next level. And, of course, she has contended here and she's got unfinished business. She hit it in the water and missed out on the playoff a couple of years ago. She hit it in the water on 18 when she really should have been a part of it or even winning the tournament. So she got unfinished business.
Logue?
Well, I've thought about Jin Young Ko. But I'm going with the other Ko, Lydia Ko.
Nice.
I just think
Because Lydia?
Well, she's already won this year, and I just think she's got a game pretty well dialed in.
She's playing with house money. Is that a bit like Rory
there
now?
is a feeling of
you
that
feel like
with
she's
her,
just
isn't
playing
there?
with house money
Yeah.
every week.
She killed that sort of concept that she was going to retire definitely last year and sort of said, oh, no, I'm still going. But it's that, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. And
Who could have predicted she'd have gone back on that, I wonder?
Yes.
Anybody who's turned 30 perhaps prior
Exactly.
to that?
Who realises it's not
Yes,
that
that's
far
exactly
down the
right.
line, yeah. I did think about Gino quite a lot as mine, but I'm going to go with Nelly. I thought last week was a really sign of improvement off the couple of weeks before that. There's been good signs, but she hasn't been quite there, so I think it's due for her to come back, and she obviously likes the golf course. So
Never a bad tip in
no,
the quarter.
yeah, it's like tipping Rory at Augusta.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much ensuring us as a team a top 10.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking team first, but I'm also thinking glory that she might win, and then I'll tell you're both idiots.
It's very selfless of you. I think there's not a lot of holes on this course where Nelly can have a disaster.
No.
either, so
No, that's where she got slipped up last year a couple of times, was at those golf.
She make a 9 or
Yeah.
a 7 on a
US
par 3 or
Open,
an 8
yeah.
or a par 3? Something.
Yeah.
She had some...
She had some horrors, but we might get an outsider tip for here as well. So someone a little bit left of field, and I like that I've shocked you, Lowe, because this is when you bring your best stuff. And that's where I'm going to stick with Esther Henselite as my outsider tip. Yes, she's finished third.
It's borderline
It's
outsider,
borderline.
but
It's
we'll
probably
allow
the last tournament I'll ever be able to tip her as an
exactly
outsider.
right. It's a
So I'm
sentimental
claiming,
tip.
so I'm claiming her as my outsider. Rod, have you got a...
Steph Kiriakou, always an outside chance. She could do anything any given. A bit like my man Hao Tong Lee, who was right there, Jimmy, all the way last week, then turned into Hao Tong Lee on Sunday, although I don't know whether you saw the finish. It was extraordinary what happened on 17 and 18. Just amazing stuff. But she's my Hao Tong Lee outsider bet.
Well, Rod previewed her, but I think she still counts as an outsider as Akie Iwai.
Yep. Yep,
Right.
absolutely. I agree, 100%. There's a very, very strong Australian contingent, so 7 in the field this week, and I don't think there's a single one you could say doesn't have some sort of claim to be a potential winner.
Bit of a golden age for Australian women's golf.
Absolutely. I
You
think
need to
it's...
recognise it.
I imagine it's probably we're getting the full effect of Kari's influence on Australian golf, that young girls picked up
These
the
are girls
game.
who grew up watching Kari as opposed to being around Kari's age. That's a good call.
And
Good
so
shout.
I think that's, and the scholarship, they talk about that a lot, but